Hello and welcome to the Empowered Couples Podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you all just know us as the Freemans.
This episode is titled, Couples with Great Communication Do This One Thing Differently.
There seems to be this idea that if you aspire for great communication and you see, oh, well, they've got it figured out. I want to be like them. We need to work on our relationship so we can communicate like them. There's this idea that that means it will be easy. Or that once you master all the skills and tools, we'll listen to every episode the Freemans have come out with. We'll do their course. We'll do their challenge. And then we'll reach this pinnacle of always getting it right. And we want to break that up.
Yeah, and mostly I feel like it's that you will dramatically reduce the conflicts or the tension that you feel. The real practical life of this is you will have tension and challenges. You will get upset with each other. You'll have unmet expectations happen. You will not get rid of that. That's a part of what it is to be a human being. Mm-hmm. We could do a whole episode on that, which we probably have in the past. You will have different preferences for your own individual quality time, to time together, to how the house is set up and organized, and parenting and work-life balance and all that stuff. These are going to be different. Your needs will seem to be conflicting with one another at times. You will make withdrawals from the other person's love account. And you will do that more than the deposits at times. And then that will have you feel like comments that your partner makes are more harsh, that are more personal attacks. You'll be more defensive. And with all that happening, you will escalate simple conversations into conflicts.
So
this is going to happen.
So you're hearing that and you're going, okay, great, Freemans, thanks. So no matter how much we work on our communication, you mean we're going to have these frustrating times? Yes, you will. We do. We had one this morning, right? And we're going to go into the principles and the things that we want to invite you into, because we have gotten great at not letting it escalate, letting there be just the perfect amount of tension and then kind of simmering things, right? And letting things cool off. And we'll go into that. And I think this is important because even when couples start private coaching with us, and we get a few sessions in, they're making so much progress, they've repaired, they've worked through resentments and challenges, they're communicating better. There will be some upset that happens. They'll text us and they'll say, we got into this frustrating conversation, and we'll be like, okay, so that means you're human, all right. And we try to shift their mindset that you're going to, quote unquote, make mistakes. You're going to have frustrating interactions, everything that Aaron described. So we are going to invite you then into a different mindset here in a minute. But just a quick kind of announcement in terms of working with us and how we're supporting couples right now. We are truly so grateful for how many couples have come to us for coaching, and we have now had to create a wait list for coaching. It's kind of hard to believe. We truly love serving, and we wish we could kind of coach 24/7, not sleep, but we've got a 1-year-old. We have to rest. And so we have to create this wait list for 4 to 6 weeks to do a session with us. But because we saw that coming, we created a brand new resource that honestly I feel is maybe one of the top 3 things we've ever created for couples, and it's only $19, and we'll be announcing that at the end of this episode, so tune in to that.
So what is the answer to this question? What is the one thing that couples with great communication do differently? So if all that being said is going to happen, what they do differently is stay in the tension and get familiar. This is the term I was thinking of. They get familiar with being uncomfortable in that tension. And they're familiar then, while being in that, what is now needed in those moments to regulate emotion, shorten this time that you're going to be disconnected, and then still repair.
So you just said a few big things right there, right? Being able to regulate their emotion, shorten the time feeling disconnected afterwards, and still repair. So this morning, just to kind of give you an example of what happened, I had brought up a certain topic, just something around the house, and I felt Aaron's kind of reaction was kind of it felt dismissive to me. And I know you weren't you don't have malintent, right? That it was just kind of an unconscious response to me. And I just kind of was like, why do you have to speak to me like that? Right. So we were reacting unconsciously because it happens, right? We're human. But we were able to keep things from getting more intense, from saying hurtful things, from, making each other the bad guy. And we were really keeping it calm. And we also didn't stay disconnected for hours, right? Where it was like, oh, you're annoying and you're frustrating. Fine, we're not going to talk. And then we won't interact for hours. And I think, and Aaron, you know physics better than me, right? But I wanted to, as we were planning for this episode.
This was good, though.
Even look up the word tension, because if you kind of think about, like I like to think of visuals, right? And if you think about the tension between you, like the energetics of what's happening. So correct me if I'm wrong here, Aaron, because you would know better, right? But tension is the force being pulled on both ends, right? And so what's important that has something not break. Now, typically that's like with a rope, right? We think of tension with a rope. But if you think about like the bond, almost like this invisible connection between you two as a couple, what prevents that tension from breaking is elasticity or flexibility. And I thought, wow, that's so powerful. If you even think about something beyond a rope, like between you two, we need to be flexible. If we're too inflexible and we're rigid, it snaps.
Wow.
Wow. I think that's a pretty good visual.
Animated. No, I thought this is a great analogy. And I'm the one with the engineering degree and took material science as a course in college. And you thought of this, which is actually such a great example. And you're right. There is this measure, this term that is called yield strength. And basically what it's a measure of is how much a material can be put under stress and then return to its original form. When it goes past the yield strength, then either it bends and is permanently deformed or it breaks.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that was a perfect example. I mean, what should couples focus on? Well, as we mentioned, things are going to happen. You're going to have that whole sequence of events. But if you can increase your yield strength, really, which is how much you can stay in tension and return back to your original form.
Kind of like I like to say bounce back. Like how quickly
bounce
can
back,
you bounce
return.
back?
And probably a better measure is more so not breaking or not get permanently deformed, right?
Yes.
Because we don't want to just return to our same form. We always want to grow. So that's where maybe the analogy breaks down. But I thought this was truly great. I think if there is an answer to what we're saying here, how high is your yield strength as a couple?
Yes. Okay, so we've got a couple points here, and there's a little alliteration in it, which I always like. So the first one is learn to regulate, don't react, right? Get the double R's there. So learn to regulate, don't react. So the moment Aaron and I, we start to feel tension, sure, there's a little bit of an unconscious response to each other, but I have trained my brain to kind of go, okay, this is where I want to reduce things right now. Regulate. And so regulating emotions means that you become conscious of how you're feeling. You have the stuff going on inside. Like I'm feeling aggravated. I want to defend myself. I want to fight for myself, right? Like I'm feeling this emotion inside, but I don't act from it. Take a breath. I'm doing some breathing. I'm talking to myself because I want to be the observer of what's going on, not be driven by my actions. And this has taken me years of practice. You mean
driven by your emotions to act, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so to regulate your emotion means you are the observer, you're breathing through it, and then you're choosing the next action. And focusing maybe on some self-talk. Anything you want to add to this point?
Keep going. We got a great alliteration statement. So
okay.
Go ahead, keep going.
So the next one, besides regulate, don't react, is embrace, don't escape, right? Like the double E's there. You want to go into this one?
Well, then I added in parentheses, allow, don't avoid.
Okay, there we go.
And it's similar to what you were saying. It's you have to feel what you're feeling. You have to allow the emotion. You have to embrace the emotion. You can't escape. We think of escaping the moment, escaping the conversation. But in a sense, you're trying to escape the feeling that you have going on within you. And if you want to have a breakthrough, you can't just escape from the tension. You have to stay in it. And I think maybe that builds your yield strength. The more you avoid, the more you just escape, you're not going to be building the strength within yourself that you need to increase your yield strength. So the next time you go under tension, you can take on a little bit more stress without breaking. And this has a lot to do with a new segment that we've been doing in coaching, which is about triggers, and it goes into not only inner child wounds, but more of this shadow self that we've been diving into, and maybe a whole other episode. But it really is, the main point is you have this shadow self that you're unwilling to look at because it is a little bit nasty because of where it comes from. It's unresolved emotion that you have been avoiding, but what you avoid controls you. So the conflict with the shadow self is you can't keep pushing it off. You have to actually accept that this is a part of yourself. And it's only in embracing it are you able to do something with it. We won't go into the long explanation, but that's what this is about. You can't just avoid. You have to allow.
Yes. And right now, at the time of recording, we're on day 2 of the 5-day couples challenge.
Oh, it was so funny how this came
so
up.
Amazing. I mean,
today.
I think I looked in we closed registration now, but 685 couples from around the world, literally so many amazing countries. And a common theme that we're seeing in the questions and that people are hoping we cover more of in the topics and the Q&A is about my partner shuts down, they avoid. And I hope that all, both you and your partner listen to our podcast. But if you tend to fall into that avoid, tension is brewing, I'm going to escape this, we are challenging you to level up. It's not easy, but we want you to get more comfortable being uncomfortable. Because if you don't, you will have a limit to your connection. You will have that thing still linger in the background. You can't reach resolution if you escape any moment of tension. Like, it's okay if there's a little bit of frustration. It's okay if there's some tension and disconnect. But if you stay in it and you regulate from that first point, you prevent things from getting too escalated, you can finally reach this moment of understanding and resolve it.
Yeah. For me personally, I'm just going to say this is not counter to what you were saying, but I tend to go towards statements that I haven't heard before.
Okay.
It's just my nature. I don't like repeating what other people say because it seems like you don't really do the work if you're just repeating what other people say. So side note, and from my own experience in relationship with what we're talking about, embracing and not escaping, to me, the nature of being uncomfortable means that you're not comfortable. So I don't like the statement, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. To me, that's stupid because
it works
you
for
only
me,
have
I gotta
one.
say.
But here's, if you listen to what I said in the beginning, I really thought about this today. It's getting familiar with being uncomfortable. And why, to me, that's more important is because when you're not aware, then when uncomfortability comes up, it takes you away. You are not conscious. It sweeps you and takes you away to act in automatic default ways. So it's more about, am I familiar with what this emotion is? I can be familiar with being uncomfortable. I can be familiar with, I've felt this tension before. I have felt being disrespected. I'm not saying you are being disrespected, but I'm familiar with this feeling. And I think that, to me, is what you need to get to, which then allows you to go to the next step, which is request what you need. So you've regulated rather than react. You've embraced, not escaped. Now you're familiar with what this feeling is. You're in control of yourself in the moment. Then it's request what you need, don't attack.
Yeah, so that could mean in this moment of tension, hey, I need for you to just hear me out, right? Or, hey, I need some more love. I'm feeling like this disconnect. Hey, what I need actually is just a few minutes to myself, right? Even if instead of just walking out, if you need to regulate, hey, I just need a few minutes to myself, which is what I needed. I needed a minute from playing with Sky. I needed to go shower. Just let me gather myself. But I shared that. So that's the third piece, request what you need. And then lastly is don't suppress. Don't harbor this resentment and, that frustration happened, that tension happened. And you now are just like, kind of holding on to that energy, which then comes out later, right?
Yeah.
Like you could go
You're
off
just
and do work.
You're just delaying. I mean,
That's exactly it. You're delaying.
mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, it's still there. And then later your partner says something about the dish, or they left the socks on the ground. And now all that suppressed emotion comes out. So what's important to realize about regulating emotion is it's not suppression. Emotion is energy in motion, and you need to move it. So I went to go take a shower. I needed to gather myself, and I chose to breathe through it, release that energy, right? As opposed to I could be in the shower like aggressively washing my hair and like getting more upset, and then, next little thing you say lash out on you.
Well, and we do like to give you the real practical examples, right? So the last thing I want to add, because this episode is not necessarily about how to repair, because we have lots of those tools that are out there, so you can go find those. But it is about this one thing, being able to stay in the tension, building your yield strength. But I do want to say humor is definitely a key aspect to have.
Diffuse. Mm-hmm.
And not a humor that steps over and ignores what's happening. You still have to stay in the uncomfortable. You still have to address not only your own shadow, but you have to address the situation that's going on. Again, other repair steps. But the requesting what you need, you have to get into the conversation, because even, for example, you took that pause, you were getting ready. I came back into repair, but then you have more to say, you have more to say. So now I feel leaving like I'm rejected in my repair attempt in a way. And then I went and sat down and, started writing some things out. And I could feel why I put this in here today is because I could feel that like harboring of resentment start to build. And it's like, as you sit with it, I'm just trying to be honest for the men. Mm-hmm. As you sit with it, you just start to make yourself like more
right.
Like, yes.
Vindicated, kind of like
possibly righteous, possibly like, oh, fine. You just want to be that way. And you start to get rigid. And it kind of is like that. It's like, I will move on with my day. And sometimes for me, it's like, I will kind of show you that you get all stuck in your junk. And I'm going to start calling people and talking with people. And I'm going to have the greatest day. I'm going to be transforming others' lives. You stay in what you were doing after I tried to repair with you. It's just none of that is good, right? It really is a harboring of resentment. So you can't just move past things. And some guys have this ability like, oh, I can just forgive along the lines of like forget. Mm-hmm. And if you do have a good repair process again, you are able to do that. Then of course there is an ability for men to be able to quote unquote move on without harboring resentment. But I want to challenge some of the men to really look to say I forgive and forget and move on. That has to be true. Mm-hmm. Like you actually have to be forgiving, because if it comes back out later, you didn't actually forgive. You just acted like you can move on. So it's this harboring of this resentment that you have to really be very conscious and aware of. You can't keep that bottled up.
You brought up a key word around repair, because imagine that this did escalate, right? Like let's say because of whatever we had going on that day, it did escalate. And that it really turned into a full-blown argument. Because I know some of you are listening going, okay, Freemans, we want to get better at these things, but we just tend to get into these arguments. And a big reason that couples come to us for coaching, and we mentioned earlier that we're on a wait list and that we have a new resource. So get ready, drum roll. So many couples were coming to us for conflict repair. An argument happens, and then we suck at coming back together, resolving it, going beyond just saying, I'm sorry. Some people would even say like the argument would become about 5 topics when it was about one original thing. So conflict repair and making sure that you actually put things in the past as opposed to harbor it and then it comes up in a later disagreement. So we have a brand new resource that is called the Making Up and Moving Forward Guide. You can get immediate access to this for only $19, and it is a step-by-step guide to repairing after an argument to ensure it's resolved for good and get back to the good times faster. Is that a good
Wow.
tagline or what?
That was really good.
Okay, in reviewing this and editing this, I seriously was like, this is top 3 things we've ever
Well, just
created.
so it's clear, because I, not like a who did what, but
Right.
I put it together. So it's not like this came from some other outside resource that
Yes.
sent to us and now we're editing it. It's not ours.
No.
I was really sitting with this process from all of the sessions we've done, going over how to repair from our book, and I really condensed it. Not just condensed it, actually, because it's shorter in the book. I brought it together with the most
Clarity.
the best statements to make,
Prompts.
the mistakes people make, the prompts, and it is very, very in-depth.
Yes.
And I put that together, passed it over to you to just do some editing. And
oh my, I went over to you and gave you a kiss because I was like, this is incredible. And so with this guide, which again, you get immediate access, you can get it at thecouplesexperience.com/guide. You need that word /guide at the end. The link will also be in the show notes. We already see some people buying it from the DMs on Instagram, which is awesome. Truly, like this will give you the breakdown, how to repair, questions to ask yourself, exactly what to say to your partner. Like you said, mistakes that are commonly made, how to keep it from getting re-triggered. So seriously, you guys go get the Making Up and Moving Forward guide, thecouplesexperience.com/guide.
And it's not technically available to the public yet. We were actually going to release it tomorrow in our 5-day couples challenge. It was going to be sort of the extra resource for them, but just based on what we were experiencing today and this message we were feeling for this podcast, you, the podcast listeners, are actually now the very first people to ever hear about this and get access to it. Which again, it was supposed to be for the group tomorrow, but we couldn't wait.
Yes. All right. So we hope this episode was insightful. Remember that no matter how much you work on your communication and how well you listen to each other, you're going to have frustrations. You're going to experience tension, but the one thing you can do differently is learn to embrace the tension and keep things from getting escalated. Another 2 double E's there, right?
Oh, there you go.
So with that, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you go get the guide and then send us a DM when you get it. We love you, and we will talk to you on the next episode.